Hi, this is Vitalize Terp Spray, and we want to share with you how we came to come up with the solution for the Vitalize Terpene Spray. So the problem we were trying to address is that we found that we were buying cannabis in a lot of legal dispensaries, that the product inside the jars was often very dry and almost like close to stale. And and the reason why is that the people that grow the flower, they really can't afford to have their flower fail lab testing because they often test 10 pounds at a time. And it's a big exposure to them. So to the err on the side of caution, they tend to over dry their product now to get past microbial lab testing panels. So in that sense, that's really only a smart business decision for them. But then predominantly everywhere I go to get flower from legal dispensaries, the product is often like hard nugs that like you often have to use a grinder to grind in order to get the smell out again. And that's largely because when cannabis dries out from the perfect point from smoking, because even when it's perfectly dried and cured, there's about 10% moisture left. When that last 10% leaves, it basically takes away terpenes and evaporates terpenes along with that water vapor when it leaves. Cannabis flower in general looks like this. When it's perfectly dry, there's water molecules inside, terpene molecules, and the cannabinoids inside. But as it dries out, the water vapor leaves, it actually pulls along the terpenes with it because the terpenes are just as volatile as the water, and when the water evaporates off, it pulls a majority of the terpenes off with it. The terpenes are important with the cannabinoids because when you consume them together, you get the entourage effect, which is a more euphoric and complete high. If you try to consume flower that's stale, you'll get more of a less euphoric high because it's lacking the terpenes that was when it was more of a fresh flower. So stale flower is the problem that we're trying to address with Vitalize Terp Spray. We're trying to give you a spray in the power of your hand to refresh and revitalize stale cannabis so it's consumable again. Sometimes you buy a quarter ounce, you smoke most of it, then you bought a new bag of weed that you fall in love with, and you don't end up smoking the last couple of grams right away. You find it in your desk drawer somewhere. Now you have a way to revitalize those last couple of grams and twist it up and roll it again. An image of how it happens is like this. The water vapor leaves as it's drying out inside the jars, taking terpenes away with it. There's a little bit of terpene still left in there. That's what happens when you grind it up and you can still smell it again. But when you add the Vitalize Terpene to spray the terpenes back, we use all botanical-based terpenes. And we say botanical-based is that we don't use actual cannabis-derived because we want to be able to ship across all 50 state lines. And so we use botanical scents from lemon peels, orange peels, and other botanical sources, and we use a PhD scientist to reblend exactly to the chemical signature of actual cannabis strains. So it smells and performs and works exactly like cannabis terpenes, but we are derived from other botanical plant sources. In that effect, when we add it back, we add back the terpene molecules, and as a dry sponge, it's like a blank canvas. Like stale cannabis is like a dry sponge. It absorbs the terpenes, we spray back onto it, and just like re-wetting a dry sponge, it absorbs into the plant material, and it tends to last. Because when we spray it, there's only terpenes in the can, there's no water in it. So in the end, the terpenes that get absorbed back in the plant material tend to linger because there's no presence of water and they're also evaporating, stripping it away again aggressively fast. So that is one way, that is the way in which we revitalize stale cannabis. And some people who are out there using BHO, they often find that if you try to use BHO and you use stale cannabis, you get shatter all the time as your result. But if you use fresh flower, you get this very wet sugar saucy result. Well, if you have stale flower and you actually add terpenes back with our sprays, you could then use BHO and get back to a saucy result again. So shatter is not very pleasant to dab, but now you can take something that was old and refreshen it, use BHO process, and then actually have something that's pleasant to dab again. So there's a lot of different ways you can refresh stale cannabis, and now we're just giving the power back to the consumer to do it themselves. We enjoy all the different ways that you can revitalize what was stale and make it palatable again. Thank you very much.